The fate of the galaxy was decided in a single moment. Not when Anakin fell, not when Palpatine rose, but when Qui-Gon died on Naboo, because he was the only Jedi who truly understood Anakin Skywalker. He didn't see a weapon. He didn't see a risk. He saw a child who had been born into slavery, a child who had never known safety, a child who had never known control over his own life. And Qui-Gon knew something the Jedi Council didn't. Anakin didn't need strict rules. He needed guidance. He needed someone who would listen. If he had survived, Anakin's training would have been completely different from the beginning. Instead of being taken to Coruscant and immediately surrounded by cold tradition, Anakin would have stayed close to his master. Qui-Gon wouldn't rush his training. He would teach him slowly, carefully. He would teach Anakin that emotions were not something to fear. That fear itself was not evil. Only the choices made because of fear were. The Jedi Council believed emotions led to the dark side. He believed emotions were part of balance. He would not tell Anakin to bury his fear. He would teach him to face it, understand it, control it. And because of that, Anakin would not grow up feeling alone. Because loneliness was the true beginning of Vader. Without Qui-Gon, Anakin was surrounded by Jedi who feared him. They watched him constantly, doubted him constantly, questioned him constantly. He was never just a Jedi. He was always a problem. But with Qui-Gon, Anakin would finally feel trusted. And trust changes everything. Qui-Gon would also sense the growing influence of Palpatine much earlier. Unlike the Jedi Council, Qui-Gon did not trust politics. He did not trust the Republic fully. He trusted the Force, and the Force would warn him. He would notice how often Palpatine requested Anakin's presence, how often he tried to isolate him, how often he planted small ideas. Doubt, resentment, fear. Qui-Gon would not forbid Anakin from seeing Palpatine, because forbidding it would only make Anakin curious. Instead, he would teach Anakin how manipulation works, how the dark side doesn't begin with power. It begins with persuasion. He would teach Anakin to question everything, even himself. And because of that, Palpatine's influence would weaken. Because Palpatine's greatest weapon was not lightning. It was isolation. He turned Anakin against the Jedi by making him feel misunderstood. But if Anakin never feels misunderstood, Palpatine loses his advantage. Years would pass. Anakin would grow stronger, faster, more powerful than any Jedi of his time. But he would also grow calmer, more controlled, because Qui-Gon would teach him something the Jedi had forgotten. The Force was not about control. It was about balance. When Anakin began having visions of his mother in pain, Qui-Gon would not dismiss them. He would listen. He would go with him to Tatooine, not as a general, not as a commander, but as a mentor. They would arrive together, and they would find her, maybe injured, maybe dying. But Anakin would not be alone. He would not be driven by blind rage. Qui-Gon would be there to steady him, to stop him from becoming lost in anger. This moment was one of the most important turning points in Anakin's life. Without guidance, he gave in to hate. But with Qui-Gon, he would learn something greater. He would learn that pain does not have to create darkness. It can create strength. Later, during the Clone Wars, Anakin would still become a great hero. Still become one of the Republic's greatest generals. Still become feared by the Separatists. But he would not become reckless. He would not become unstable. Because every step of the way, Qui-Gon would guide him, remind him, balance, patience, trust, and Palpatine would grow worried, because his plan depended on Anakin's fall. Without Vader, the future of the Sith was uncertain. Palpatine would try harder, push further, create more war, more suffering, more pressure, but Anakin would no longer break under pressure, because he was no longer alone. When Anakin began having visions of Padme dying, Qui-Gon would not dismiss them as fear. He would understand their danger. He would teach Anakin that the future was always in motion, that visions were warnings, not destiny. He would help Anakin accept uncertainty. Instead of trying to control death, instead of trying to prevent fate through power, Anakin would learn acceptance. And that single lesson would destroy Palpatine's entire plan. Because Vader was born from the fear of loss. Without that fear, Vader never exists. Eventually, Palpatine would be forced to act openly. He would reveal himself, attempt to turn Anakin directly, offer him power, offer him control, offer him the ability to stop death. But Anakin would see the truth, because Qui-Gon had prepared him. He would see manipulation. He would see fear disguised as strength, and he would refuse. The confrontation would be different. Anakin would stand with the Jedi, not against them. Palpatine would be exposed. The Sith would fall. The Republic would survive, and the Jedi Order would never be destroyed. Anakin Skywalker would never become Darth Vader. He would become something else, something greater, not a symbol of fear, but a symbol of balance. And it all comes down to one truth. The galaxy didn't lose Anakin because he was weak. It lost him because he was alone. And if Qui-Gon had lived, Anakin Skywalker would have never fallen.